Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our webinar today. I'm Max Thomas with SIS Software, and I'll be your moderator. SIS has been delivering construction solutions for over 20 years now, and we're excited to be able to sponsor this and have this panel today. Our team has done probably 300 plus implementations for 200 active customers over the years, and we continue to grow and serve our customers. I hope today you'll find some nuggets of information and take that back with you as you make software selections and decisions now and in the future. It's my pleasure to introduce our panelists today, and starting on my far right is Mr. Christian Berger, founder of Berger Consulting, a veteran of the industry, and has been doing software selection for many years. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you do, Christian?
Thank you, Max, and delighted to be here. Appreciate the invitation. So my name is Christian Berger, Berger Consulting Group. We are, in fact, independent. We don't have vendor alliances, but serve our clients with software selection, implementation, planning work, and software assessments. And I've been dedicated to the construction industry for about 20 to 25 years in different capacities, and have watched contractors struggle with automation, particularly with large ERP decisions, and how the emergence of project management has been influential. So I'm excited to be here and contribute. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Christian. And on Christian's left is Jerome Bodwin. Thank you again for joining us today. Jerome owns his own company, Plurus Solutions, and also helps companies navigate through software selections, as well as serving as an interim CIO right now, right, Jerome?
That's correct, Max.
Well, tell us a little bit more about what you do day in and day out.
Sure, thanks, Max, and thanks again for the invite. As Plurus Solutions, my involvement has been primarily around a number of different activities, from interim CIO roles to really leading in charge of project execution and focusing on really around operational excellence, operation optimization, and transformation of operations from an ERP perspective, and looking at how we can actually create greater value through the implementations of ERPs across the portfolio with these operational activities.
Great. So I assume you've got background going through many implementations with different platforms and vendors, right?
Very much so, yes.
Great. Look forward to hearing your perspective on some of these things.
Thank you.
And to my right is Ted Kempf, U.S. Director for this industry for Microsoft. Tell us a little bit more about what you do every day, Ted.
Yeah, well, like my colleagues up here on the panel, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for attending, those of you who are watching this. As Max pointed out, I'm the director for the service industries within Microsoft. Microsoft goes to market in 8 different industries, and one of them is the service industries, which absolutely focuses on architecture, engineering, and construction. I'm responsible for the solutions that we bring to market for the AEC industry, both from a operational or ERP and financial perspective, but as well as from a business development vantage point. I've been doing this for 17 years. I've been around the block, so to speak, looking at and working with companies like PeopleSoft, Oracle, and Deltek.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today, Ted. We look forward to your perspective and hearing more about the Dynamics AX that's just been released. So let's get into the topics of discussion today. We're going to talk about the path that companies should take, whether it should be best of breed application strategies or integrated ERP, or maybe a combination of both. What if companies need to add major functionality? They start out small, possibly buy the best job cost system out there, but then they find that, oh, we need to add on an HR solution. We've got new regulations coming out. They get into fabrication, such as mechanical contractors need to do. So we're going to discuss a little bit about what those challenges present. We're also going to talk about finding ROI with ERP. I've been in the ERP business for years myself. I've been on the other side of the desk. Served as a COO for a specialty contractor at one point as well. And it's always been a challenge finding ROI in ERP. So looking forward to getting your perspectives there. We're also going to talk about how companies are growing. They're consolidating more and more through rapid growth acquisitions and consolidations that present challenges, especially if they've got an environment with 15, 20 different business applications, as I've certainly seen from different clients that come to us at SIS for help. And the big question out there today is, should I go cloud or premise? We know Microsoft wants to see everybody in the cloud, but it's still it's a big decision for companies, and we see more and more going to the cloud though these days. So look forward to getting your perspective there. And then we'll wrap up and want to learn more about the new Microsoft Dynamics AX from you, Ted, and what's the difference, what it brings to clients today that, it didn't have 5 years ago, or a choice that clients didn't have, in the prior decade. Sure. So the first topic of discussion is, should project-driven companies choose an ERP, an integrated ERP, or a best-of-breed strategy, or a combination of both? And what are some of the benefits and challenges of each? So, Christian, what's your perspective on this as this paradigm evolves?
Well, it might help to have just a little bit of perspective as to how we got where we are and what the lineage has been. So construction businesses, when they started out down this path, really only had one choice, and that was a single monolithic ERP system with various accounting and operation job cost applications. And it wasn't until the 2000s when they started realizing that construction companies wanted project management integrated in. So they built project management instead of trying to integrate with best-in-class project management solutions, because having tried to integrate, it didn't work so well. Today, contractors who are diversifying into fabrication and some of them are into mining and aggregate production and other functions which may be non-traditional for a construction company. For them, I think a strict boundary of ERP function that's good for construction may not be appropriate, because that product won't necessarily serve the broader functions, the diversified functions that they're moving into. So I think it certainly is a business by business situation, but for those who are expecting to grow, whether it be internationally growing or diversifying services and thereby the requirements of their software, I think they need to look at a solution that lends them that flexibility. But by the same token, a small contractor, mid-sized contractor who is fairly going to stay within the bounds of contracting work and project management, having an integrated solution avoids certain risks, certain costs, certain complexity, which may come with trying to do an integrated approach. So I think at least hopefully that brings us up to the present time.
Great. Thank you, Christian. Jerome, what's been your experience or perspective on this as companies try and grow and manage all these different applications they acquire over the years?
Well, certainly in the last two implementations of a construction company that I've been involved in, we had looked at both best of breed and integrated ERPs. And it's really interesting because if you look inside the actual company themselves and start talking to the individual people within the various premises of the company, they're very focused on the independency of what they provide. And so they don't look at the true benefits across the entire enterprise. They look at the value proposition and what they do. And so when you look at that and you look at what an integrated ERP can provide, especially when you look at source of truth and the overall ability to be a lot more competitive through the overall value chain, the integrated ERPs provide a lot more functionality, much more fluency, much more structure in the way we do things, and more importantly, especially when we're looking at being much more competitive in the nature of our environment, we need information both from a timely point of view, from a single source point of view, the ability to make those decisions that really provide a holistic capability across the entire organization versus just the individual silo. That's not to say their individual best of breed don't provide some value, but as Christian alluded to, we've come a long way, and the integrated ERPs really provide much more of a streamlined approach in the way we can actually construct ourselves and more importantly, the way we operationalize our ability across the entire organization.
So you're saying one version of the truth across the enterprise is helping both headquarters all the way to the field manage the business. Do you see ERPs adding that industry functionality that they lacked maybe 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, the benefit of the ERPs is that they've got a lot of different components to it. And sometimes what you don't see is all of the various elements around that. There are various modules when you look at integrated ERP that really functions across the entire spectrum of the organization. And so although you may be looking at maybe, say, customer service, or maybe around the maintenance component, these ERPs now, integrated ERPs, look at the full life cycle from cradle to grave of the overall business cycle. And so now you're able to really take full heart from HR to supply chain to fabrication to the overall element around estimating. That will really create much more of a fluency across the management of not only information, but the management of how you actually execute your business.
Thank you. Good perspective.
I think,
Ed,
yeah.
You have anything to add there?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Max.
bet.
So, what I don't believe it's a zero-sum game, and obviously I'm coming to you from the Microsoft perspective, but we believe very strongly that in the conversations that we're having, we're hearing this term platform be used quite a bit. And what that means is being able to come to market with an integrated ERP solution, but one that's open. Okay, so if a company has said, look, we actually really like our maintenance management or services functionality, we've custom designed it, we've built it, we don't want to change that, but we really are interested in changing our project management, resource scheduling, things like that, we actually can give them the ability through an open system to do that. Okay, or we actually open the application and allow partners, because Microsoft is extraordinarily focused on our partners and the functionality that they build, to extend the application, because most of these companies in the AEC industry are not sitting still. They are growing, and the business that they have today is not going to be the business that they have tomorrow, and they need to be thinking about how they can extend these applications. So that's the idea of this platform. Have something that's fully integrated, but that is also open to take in other applications.
Thanks. That's what we see too, and often companies refer to that as their secret sauce. Maybe a company has purchased in the past or built a service application. They need to improve project management, job cost, HR, and other functions, but they want to hold on to that secret sauce, and Microsoft is enabling them to do that.
Absolutely,
is what you're saying.
absolutely.
So the next question we had on our topics is, how do companies better prepare themselves for growth if they have to add on fabrication or manufacturing? And we touched on it a little bit, but some of these major functionalities that smaller accounting systems that they may have purchased in the past just don't have. Jerome, why don't you give us a perspective on that?
Sure. In the world of the integrated ERPs now, as we talked about a few minutes ago, the integrated ERPs have a lot more functionality across the overall spectrum of what they bring. They are the benefit of some of them today is that they are very modularized. And so what you're able to do is you're able to look at the various pieces within the overall ERPs and determine which pieces you want to bring into the forefront of the utilization of these solutions. But more importantly, these ERPs now, these integrated ERPs, have ability to not only bring best of breed, but also best ability around the norm of the behavior of the industry. And what you're seeing now is that you're looking at the technology bring the ability of what the overall industry is doing, sort of that norm, and then looking at actually expediting that to the way your business processes work. And the benefit of these integrated ERPs, especially now as you grow, you can now start functioning them into the growth pattern of where you want to go. Sometimes when you look at some of these ERPs or the best of breeds, they only function for a certain size of your company. And depending on what you're looking at, they limit your ability, they limit your functionality, and they limit really what you're positioning your company overall. But as you move forward, these integrated ERPs provide a lot more functionality that really allows you to step forward to be a lot more competitive in your space and to bring a lot more value to how you actually execute your business.
Yeah, I think in the past, cost has been somewhat of an inhibitor to that, but we see more and more companies thinking about how do I grow, or what might I need tomorrow, and trying to plan for that. Christian, what are you seeing out there?
Well, I think tying back a little bit to the earlier question and also to Jerome's response, I feel like there's been a fairly significant change, or there's a change happening right now with the what we call the Tier 2 ERP companies, the software developers who build software for the construction industry. traditionally they built for the accounting and finance and admin departments and areas, and maybe a little bit for project management, but there wasn't a lot there. And they've since added more in project management. But with building information modeling emerging, pre-construction activities emerging, the need for fabrication happening now and material coordination, there's activity that is happening sooner in terms of structuring data that the ERP today doesn't get involved with at all. And so I think that that's having a fairly significant impact. And a lot of the software developers that serve our industry have been small, privately held, and fairly thinly capitalized. That's changing, but it's a struggle for them. If they build an HR system, they can't build an inventory and material management system. If they build material management, they can't get into BIM integration. So I think that they are struggling with trying to keep up and make everyone happy. I think that one of the approaches that Microsoft is taking that I think is intriguing and potentially beneficial for a number of companies in this space, and some others are taking it too, is this notion of a partner community, because somebody can take the BIM integration, they can take the HR function, they can take a service management function and really build it out to a best-in-breed application, but doing so within the confines of the Microsoft solution itself. And I think that has potential for companies that are growing and perhaps have outgrown their Tier 2 ERP.
Yeah, Microsoft's made it easy to develop NAX. We've developed union payroll and some project cost management add-ons for AX, so we enjoy that openness of code as a partner. Well, let's move on to our next topic. It's a pretty big one, and I've even struggled in making an ERP decision a couple times in my past. But how do we find ROI in ERP? I think that from some of the big box ERP solutions, we've read the stories of how they failed, and there's a lot of white papers out there. But I'd like to get your perspective, because you're out there day in and day out, helping customers navigate through this and find justification. Jerome, you've probably had to do that a few times in your career. Give us some tips on justifying the ROI and finding the ROI in ERP.
Well, let me step back for a sec. Just around that, when you talk about ROI, there's both the intangible and tangible ROI that you always focus on. But I want to really talk about, before you start establishing your ROI, you got to understand what you're trying to actually execute in regards of your overall business activities. And so when you look at the business processes, you got to determine what you're trying to gain. Where are you moving towards? Where are you going both today and for the future? And that really starts driving you sort of the ROI. I go back to the recent implementation of a construction company where we talked about taking all the opportunities as they come in, holding on to those opportunities, then determining whether we want to actually bid on those opportunities. Once we start bidding and we win those opportunities, we turn them in extra to our project. Then we actually take that up project, create those estimates, and then move that into a true construction activity where you build your work breakdown structure and then move it into a construction activity. So when you look at all of that, you look at all the ROI components that are associated to that. I can tell you right now from my perspective, sitting down with the actual business to try and understand what the true ROIs is very difficult, because sometimes they're very focused on one little element or their singular activity, so they don't look at the broad spectrum of the ROI. So that's why I go back to, when you look at the ROI, there's a lot of different elements around that, especially both intangible and tangible, and often we focus much more towards intangible, because it's great to put some stuff in a sort of pie in the sky element out there, thinking that we're going to hit it, and then really not understanding what that is.
I would like to comment, because what you're basically saying, this is a best practice for companies that are looking at putting an ERP in ahead of the actual evaluation process.
Right.
Meaning, let's think this through, or it could be part of the discovery. I was recently with a very large AEC firm, and they had brought in 25 people from around the world to sit down and do workshops while they're going through discovery of the ERP systems, but to talk through, what do we want these processes to look at? What is the art of the possible? Then let's nail that down. Then we have our baseline.
Correct.
And from there we can measure. So I was very impressed with how they're doing that, and I thought it was a good parallel to what you just shared, Jerome.
Very much
I
so,
like
yeah.
that, the art of the possible, of what's possible. That's good. And I find so many companies go into these projects and they haven't set 3 to 5 business goals of we want to increase sales by this percent without increasing overhead or whatever those goals might be. Christian, what are you seeing out there?
Well, it's funny when we start a selection project. Almost the very first thing we do is define what those business objectives are going to be. The business objectives, not the technology objectives, but the business objectives. What are we trying to solve for? When I look at the value that ERP technology or technology in general brings to a construction company, I think that efficiency is certainly up there, but the multiplier that you get from efficiency is modest. It's good. Maybe you save a clerical person or you save half of a project manager. But for construction businesses, that's not where it's at. The savings is from risk management.
Yes.
They carry enormous risk, and anything that helps them mitigate that risk is high payback. Now, it may not be frequent situations, but the tracking of lien waivers, the tracking of insurance certificates, ensuring that costs are being billed, change orders are being approved, RFIs are being responded to, payroll is being handled properly, HR is being secured, and onboarding is done efficiently, equipment is being maintained correctly. There's so many places where the risk is just outrageous, and the risk, the cost of non-conformance is terribly high. So I feel like where you can identify the payback, the higher ROI for ERP systems is through that risk management. And then of course the other part is getting the structures built for their owners and doing so in a cost-effective manner. Construction companies are frequently bidding on very large projects with lump sum engagements or capped cost plus contracts, and they can't go over, so they have to manage their costs, and they don't like surprises. So there's a lot of there are a lot of dynamics unique to construction, to the project-based industry, that I think can generate high ROI for technology if properly deployed.
Yeah, I want to just comment on that because I go back to the regional or the previous question, which is what if you wanted to expand or extend your construction-based ERP into something like fabrication, and why are they doing fabrication or prefab? Because it reduces the risk, right?
Yep.
Get it done, take that risk out, don't you have to assemble it on the job site, and that is directly tied to the ROI.
But and the risk, that's a great point, but the risk of doing fabrication without proper systems and processes actually works against you.
Absolutely. So, but if you can do it all in the same system and have visibility across the entire workload, now you're
Yep.
talking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the risk management part. We spend a lot of time with our customers managing that risk and the margin and managing what we call estimated cost at completion, not just cost to complete, but estimated cost
Sure.
at completion, which really shows the whole story. There's so many companies that don't know they're underwater on a project until it's really too late and they've lost money. So
One of the things I do with clients is I tend to push the responsibility for defining that ROI onto the different user groups, like a purchasing group or a project management group or an accounting group, and I want them to derive the payback, the ROI, because I feel like they've got to be bought in. They have to see where the benefits are going to come from rather than just sort of abdicate the responsibility. And that usually works fairly well because they're creative and they know where the problems are, whether it's risk, inefficiency. The other place where I would say you get ROI, and it's not always very evident, is in terms of attracting and hiring talented people. There are a tremendous number of young people coming into the industry now, and they expect to be working with the latest technology and the latest tools. And if you hand them a yellow pad and a pencil, or an ancient spreadsheet, they're going to be they probably won't think much of the company and their technology direction. So I think that there is a value, and I don't know how you necessarily quantify it, but there is a value to the attractiveness of your company, both from an employment standpoint, but then also out in the marketplace with customers. When you can show customers that you have tight controls, that you manage risk very carefully, the owner, in the construction sense, tends to be impressed, and that's table stakes today.
Yeah,
Well,
that's a great point.
The other benefit with the ROI, when you think about it, exactly what Christian alluded to, is that if you're using an integrated ERP, one of the greatest benefits is the fact that you're using the same look and feel, the same structure, same processes, no matter what modules. And I can tell you that's a significant savings from an overall organization point of view, from a training perspective, because if you have these best of breeds, you're retooling and educating people from one to the other by having the same look and feel. The process may be somewhat different because the elements of different areas within the structure of the company, but the actual element of the full same look and feel, knowing that you can actually follow the actual information from start to finish, makes a big difference from an ROI point of view.
I'd like to tie in both of what you said, because there's one area that I spend, and I talk about collaboration about as much as I talk about project management these days. And your comment about the millennials or the younger folks joining companies, when they see the collaborative technologies that are available and they're so used to using them today and sharing, I think that if companies that look at collaboration in the context of how they're doing both their pursuits as well as their delivery, it can provide a tremendous ROI. Finding the subject matter experts, finding the past projects that you've worked on, and what did that look like. Being able to have an instant message chat with someone who's a subject matter expert around the world and talk about this and do your desktop sharing. Those things can't be overlooked as well. And I see that as a huge trend.
Yeah, it's interesting points you're bringing up that not everybody always thinks about when they're thinking ROI. And Christian, your point about the new generation coming into the construction industry, it reminded me of the owner and this has been some time back, when I was a COO and a specialty contractor, said, "Oh, you're never going to get Joe to use that estimation package. He's used to his spreadsheet." And I think that I encountered one company that had 5 different. It was a GC, and they had 5 different templates for estimation. And nowadays, I think the company gets questioned on that. A young person comes in, they want to see new systems and new technology, and that's just the paradigm has changed. But 5-10 years ago, it was you're not going to get Joe to use that. That's an interesting point. So the next topic for our discussion, we went over it in the beginning, but I know you guys are guiding companies as they just make these decisions. And companies, I've had companies and CFOs and CEOs come right out and say, "Look, we're going to grow by acquisition, and we've got to have a system that we can roll out and we can bring on a new company quickly." Tell me a little bit about that and what you're seeing in the market. Christian, beginning with you.
Well, it depends a little bit upon whether the acquisitions is sort of a horizontal where they're buying more of the same, or they're actually trying to vertically integrate with maybe a supply chain approach to things. Whether it's a real estate development company and property management company that wants to get into the construction, or a construction company that goes into design, or a construction company that goes into fabrication. So there's a number of permutations that make that kind of an interesting question. But I would say that unless they had tremendous prescience when they started out on that path, they probably don't have an ERP that is going to be suitable in terms of growth and expandability into the other solution areas. And the bigger question though is, and it's a rather interesting one, because I sometimes step into companies that are roll-ups, and they've got a lot of acquisitions under one holding company. And the question is always, do you standardize? Do you standardize everybody or leave everyone alone? Mm-hmm. And to me, standardization is great, but it forces some companies to go through a migration that they might not necessarily want to do. The question then becomes, are we going to get any advantage at the corporate level from having that level of integration, right? If all it really is bringing the general ledgers together, you don't need to force everybody. You don't need to force everybody onto the same solution to simply bring the general ledgers together. So leave everybody alone and tie the GLs together. On the other hand, if you're going to get advantage through purchasing, through equipment management, through HR, through some of these central, what you might call central services, then I think there can be an argument made. There's also obviously an argument to be made for the centralization and standardization, so you can put in one help desk, so you can get control of your maintenance cost and software maintenance costs and solution costs, develop training materials, develop standardized processes. I see some of the aggregated companies who try to standardize across the board and put management by edict of sorts. But then I also see some who are like, you know what, they're running successful, leave them alone and support them. So it depends on the strategy, I would say, as to how that impacts ERP decision.
Yeah, I loved what you said, because, again, I don't think in the world of Microsoft it's an either or. I think you can have the best of both worlds. As long as your ERP system is flexible enough to allow different legal entities within the organization to configure the product to meet their needs and then roll all that information up for reporting. We find a lot of companies love that because their Latin American operations have specific processes that they want to follow, but they can do that in the same system, okay? It's just the way in which it's configured for that particular country or division. And so, you know, we get a lot of, you know, eyebrows raised. Really, you can do that. I didn't realize that you could actually have this all in the same product where you can actually configure it for different division within the same building or within a different country in the same application, and then it's all there in one product, and the policies are set for that particular legal entity. So again, I really, what you said resonated with me. It's, but in our case, it's not a zero-sum game.
I think the other thing, sorry, Joan, but the other thing that that I would just tag onto that is it's not just the roll-ups that would have this dilemma, but another aspect of this that's fairly important is whether or not the company is publicly traded. Publicly traded companies,
Yes.
contracting companies, have tremendous scrutiny on their not just their books, but the processes to achieve that. And it's a lot easier to audit across a lot of entities if you have some systems in place and processes in place that have visibility and transparency, rather than people that are on 20-year-old archaic kind of solutions that no one knows how to run except one person. And so I think that the whether or not they're publicly traded, a publicly traded company has greater demands for standardization, and I think that becomes easier in a single solution.
Well, it's funny, I was just going to go there.
Sorry.
That's why I'm glad you started that, because what I'm used to is exactly, it depends on what's been stated to your shareholders and the community at large of what you're going to gain through these acquisition or divestments. Right, so your focus is really dependent on those activities, and so if you're really focusing on the overall revenue generation and streamlining your processes, you're going to really focus on bringing a standard approach on how you do your business. Now, the beauty about the integrated RPs, and I go back a little bit to what Ted said, is that because of the ability to modularize various components, your current business today may have everything except for, say, fabrication. And now you're buying a company that has fabrication. The beauty of this is that to be able to actually add that component on, very transparent and very streamlined in the overall approach of how you can actually bring that on. So it really helps streamline the structure of not only the acquisition, but the ability to actually move that business into the fold of your overall business very quickly and gain the revenue capability that you're looking for right from the start. So there's some really opportunities. One benefit I'll give you that we did is that we actually created templates, because we were going through a very high level of acquisition modes. And we created these acquisition templates that really focused on certain activities. These templates would go in, you populate them, and it would actually transform your business to move into that structure very quickly. So within a very short period of time, we had these people working in the same system with the same structure, given that there's going to be different company entities and different entity abilities that you have to comply with, but it was very easy to transform them into your overall corporate business model.
But wouldn't you say that back in the old days when maybe we both started working with companies and in their ERPs, it used to be very difficult to enforce standardization from a single ERP because it was a very structured program. And it was
Correct.
like a square peg in a round hole. Maybe it fit
Yeah.
perfectly for this entity, but not these. But then if you had to go to different solutions, you couldn't standardize. So with today's technology, this is my supposition, in today's technology, I think you have the capability of putting that template in place for 80% standardization across the enterprise, and then the last 20% can be tailored, configured to the unique business requirements of the general contractor, the design entity, the fabrication entity, what have you.
Yes.
Very much so.
And that makes-
I would
I think
agree.
that
See
makes-
Yeah.
that all the time.
It's
Yeah.
interesting you brought that up because we had a client recently that had 30 to 40 companies, and they wanted the benefits of the roll up, the knowing that we purchased this kind of volume from this vendor and so forth, and the benefits of rolling a solution out quickly. But they also wanted that last 20% to be the secret sauce for each company.
Sure.
Ted, it sounds like you're saying Microsoft is
I,
enabling
I,
that.
I think I know who you're talking about there, and that's the reason they purchased it. Because you need to meet the requirements of, in this case, these 35, 40 different divisions in this organization, and give them the feeling that, yeah, this can be configured for how we need to do certain business processes without upsetting the overall standardization of the application. And so absolutely, yes, that is a core design principle of our ERP solution.
Well, let's move on to the next topic on our discussion. There's certainly a lot of momentum around the cloud. I know everybody has their opinion. I've been through cost justifications many times on cloud versus on-premise, and get the question just about every day, but I'd love to hear your perspectives on it. I'm going to save you, Ted, because I think I know what your perspective is, but I'm sure you're going to add some value to this. Jerome, why don't you start off and just give us some perspective of what you're seeing, what should drive somebody to go cloud versus what might cause them to feel like they need to stay on premise?
You know, that's an interesting question, because it's a question that is debated very hardly across various
Right,
organizations on a daily basis. Certainly from my point of view, the benefit with the cloud today now is that it provides a much more fluent capability around reaching out to really a vast audience with a lot more structure embedded within the overall ability of what you're delivering. And I'll give you an example, and I may be putting a little bit of a feather in Ted's hat here, but I'll go back to when we were looking at implementing AX. One of the benefits of going to the cloud was also because of our utility products like Office 365, our SharePoint. We're able to now bring that all into the cloud and manage that externally and reduce the load we have internally within the organization. Now that's being handled outside. There's a people savings, there's a technology savings, there's a variety of different savings of moving to the cloud. Now, I'm not saying the cloud is a fit for everybody, but certainly depending on what you're trying to do and where you're going overall from an organizational point of view, cloud has a lot of value to it. But again, you've got to reassess what you're trying to do, because if you've got a lot of what I call best of breed applications in your organization, and you're not going to actually move those applications out, you got to look at the integration between cloud versus what's within your company.
Right.
So again, there's a lot of different variabilities associated to where it makes sense for an organization and where it doesn't. So you've got to look at all the variabilities around that. But certainly as we go forth, what I'm seeing and what I've done recently is that there's a tremendous much more opportunity moving things to the cloud than there is holding it in your backyard. Because number one, even from a software maintenance point of view, I can tell you right now, trying to find windows to upgrade your software and all the patches associated, those are the things that you don't have to worry about anymore. These are being managed externally. Now all you're focusing is really on your core competency, which is your business, and you're managing that business the way you should be, not worrying about the technology aspect of it behind that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think you nailed the concepts and the issues with cloud-based solutions, particularly integrations. That's probably one of the more significant ones that we find, because there are a lot of integrations necessary, at least in today's construction environment, between their estimating solutions, their project management solutions. They want collaboration. They've got some other HR technology perhaps that they're trying. And if you've got either some of those are in different cloud platforms, if some of the solutions don't have web services and APIs, it makes it difficult to do integration. So I think that that's a factor. 10 years ago, shouldn't say nobody, but it wasn't viable. 5 years ago, it was getting toward better than sketchy, but only a little. But now I would say it's a much more robust, much more capable way to go. And to that point, I think contractors' data centers are shrinking fast. Whether it was a full-blown data center or a closet or whatever they happen to have, they're realizing that they cannot maintain proper disaster recovery, proper security, proper cooling.
Correct.
Keeping up with updates and patches, it's just too much. It's not the kind of value add that companies want. But they had to do it because they didn't have a choice. There was nobody out there. Now there's someone out there saying, hey, we've got this covered, and just put your applications here. So I think that the combination of the two situations are driving people there, and with pretty good success. But as you said, Jerome, I think the issue of integrations is probably the trickiest one still.
Yeah, I think so. I have to agree with you. But I have seen a shift. I think I was at a technology conference in Chicago about 5 years ago where they said only 6% of the AEC market was putting their applications in the cloud. I mean, and when I say, I mean ERP, or major business applications, and I think that's dramatically shifted. Just in the last 2 or 3 years, I'm hearing more and more, oh, we want to go cloud, we want to go cloud.
One of the things that's made construction companies comfortable with that concept is the use of collaborative software. They've been using collaborative platforms for project collaboration, not ERP collaboration, but project collaboration for probably, 15 years now. I mean, so they've gotten comfortable with RFI processing, submittal processing, meeting minutes, and all of the project management functions being in a collaborative cloud environment already. So they're used to that, but there was always a little bit of a sort of hesitancy around the accounting data and having
The
that
data,
somewhere
yeah.
else.
That's a good point.
It is totally changed from my perspective, so much so that we now ask when we're talking to someone really early in their evaluation, what is your deployment focus? You know, on-prem, in the cloud, or do you want a hybrid? And that's one of the things that's unique to Microsoft too, is that you could actually take certain workloads and put them in the cloud or keep them on-premise, depending on how you feel. But we see it all the time. And Max, I wanted to say, what the cloud is also doing is it's allowing people to introduce new service lines, like the Internet of Things. So we have a cloud-based Internet of Things offering that allows you to put sensors all over the facility or the materials as they're making their way to the job site, or even in people's hard hats, and take all that data and put it in the cloud, allow you to analyze it and then work with it. So yeah, so new service offerings too coming from the cloud.
Well, and you think about it, today's technology, if you're a provider of technology and you're not providing the integration capability, you're going to be left in the dust. And so going back to Christian's comment, majority of the vendors, the top tier vendors today now have that capability. I'm talking about best of breed applications as well as integrated ERPs. They have that openness, that capability that now helps them to transform that ability to integrate much more effectively than they have even 3 years ago.
So, do you think that the security in the cloud, because that's the one thing, the data, the security, I called it hugging the tree a few years ago, where people just weren't going to give up that data. They were worried about security. Ted, wrap up for us on this topic of how Microsoft is handling that.
Well, first and foremost, what I think a lot of people don't realize is that we are in the data center business, meaning we have invested and continue to invest significantly in building out our own data centers, which effectively is the cloud, all over the world. And so people say, well, we have these problems transferring data in Germany. Well, we've got a data center in Germany, so we can deal with that over there. And then all the security software that people have become to be very familiar with Microsoft products is in the data centers. And so from that perspective, it's as secure as you would find it on-prem.
The thing
More
that,
so, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of being able to access it, you know.
Yeah, I think it's partly an emotional thing.
Yeah.
As far as on-prem versus cloud too.
Yeah.
I think you're right. The security has come a long way, and I don't hear about, oh well, Azure got hacked or anything like that. I can't recall hearing that. So it's emotional.
I was going to say, I would say today, going back to your comment, Ted, I'd say the data is much more secure because in your own company, you move data around, not secure. If you think about the fact that in the cloud, every time, especially I'm going to go back to Office 365, the one that we just did with AX, is the fact that all data that moves around is all integrated, encrypted. So that provides another high level of security that you would never have in your own premise capability, right?
That's a great point. I mean, one of the things we have been preaching much more clearly of late is IT governance. And in a lot of construction companies, governance stops at having a password. And so
Yeah.
I think that companies don't realize how much risk they expose themselves and their data to simply by poor governance. Whereas in a cloud environment, you still have user involvement, interaction. You could still open up a bad email, but the protocols and the security around the data and the hardware much tighter, much more secure.
Well, and going to our next topic, I think we'll move to you, Ted. Give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about Microsoft, what you're doing at Microsoft with AX. Obviously, SIS is very involved in that and that strategy. Jerome, it sounds like you most recently implemented AX, and the implementation you guided. Before we move to Ted, can you just briefly tell us why AX was chosen for that company and what kind of company it was?
Sure. This was a construction company that I was sort of the lead CIO for. And we actually did do an assessment on a number of different ERPs to determine really the best fit for the organization. And we ended up choosing AX. And there are a variety of reasons why we chose AX, but I'll focus on two of them specifically. Number one is that we needed one that actually was very flexible and adopted the processes of our business, but wasn't too flexible that it would create much more structure and headache to manage overall. It also provided a lot more capability from cradle to grave. And what I mean by that is that in our recent implementation, so we started off with the capturing the opportunity at the CRM level, the customer relationship management system level, gathering that information, assessing the information that's coming in from potential opportunities, determining whether or not we want to do those projects, turning those projects into actual bids, estimating them, then actually doing an actual material takeoff from them, then moving them depending on whether we got awarded them, putting them into a project, managing that project, and then really looking at the overall element of how we're managing those projects, both from project management capability, but also from an asset. One of the things that we didn't talk about is, one of the things that we did as well is, and this was something that we fell upon, is that we had a lot of assets that we both rented, leased, and owned. And what we were doing, the way we were charging out our equipment, we recognized that there was a lot of gaps and holes around that. And by standardizing the process around that, we were able to now to understand our overall cost of our assets. So not only that, then pushing them out and how we're using them from a utilization point of view. But when you look at that full integration, we did that, and then we brought in HR, we brought in safety, health and environment into it as well. And we're able now to bring a full-fledged capability into this company that allowed us to standardize. It was a cultural shift that we had to go through, and it was a large change management initiative. But I can tell you the benefit that we received from that was enormous. It really leaped that company from I'd say, from the low-tiered construction area that they focused on to one of the top-tier construction companies in the way they delivered construction projects.
Well, that's pretty impressive. That sounds like you pretty much implemented a system to take it from lead to opportunity to cash.
Very much so.
That's I like
And
to
that's-
put it. Yeah, and if somebody doesn't understand their costs, they can't exactly manage margin. Well, let's wrap up with Ted. You're here for a reason. We want to hear more about the new Microsoft Dynamics AX. tell us about the benefits of using AX and how a company like Jerome just guided can solve a lot of these issues that we've talked about today.
Sure, Max, and thanks for the opportunity. So what a lot of people may not realize is that Dynamics AX is a full-on ERP system that is designed specifically for the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. And it has all the functionality from project management to resource scheduling to subcontractor management to documented controls and submittals and transmittals and equipment management, as you were saying. I mean, the whole solution footprint that you would expect to find in an ERP system. And I like to say that we take it to market in all the flavors of AEC, from architecture, engineering, heavy highway, civil engineering, GC, specialty contractors, home building, and real estate.
Yeah,
we have
yeah.
solutions to meet everyone and their needs. And what makes Microsoft Dynamics AX truly unique is that it's an open system. And it's really important that people understand that, because we have a partner ecosystem, and because we open up the application, we allow our partners like SIS to build functionality into the application. So we have payroll at Microsoft, but when it comes to union payroll, highly specialized for the space, we have a partner like SIS who has built that into the same application. So what that allows us to do, and it's kind of going back to one of your points you made earlier, Christian, you have multiple R&D teams constantly working on the application, improving it, bringing it forward. Microsoft is constantly working on it, and so are our partners, to just advance more so than any company ever could, the product and its footprint in this space. So now when it comes to the latest version that we just released, we literally rewrote the entire ERP application. I'm going to pause for a dramatic effect.
Well,
Yeah,
from what I understand, the core is still very much the same, but the user interface is all HTML5.
Yeah, you stole my thunder.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, we rewrote it all in HTML5. And what that basically means is that it will recognize the form factor that you're on. So you can have it was very important for us that the user would have the same experience, whether they're at the desktop, laptop, or on a mobile device. We support all operating systems, iOS, Android, and of course, Windows. And so that was a really big deal. And then we've completely changed the user interface so that it is, and spent a lot of time looking at how people interact with the application. So that was a big, big step for us. And of course, now it's 100% available in the cloud, in Azure. So if you're interested in that, and you'd be surprised how many people have been calling us up saying, we see that you're now in the cloud. We really want to talk to you. We like the functionality, but for all the benefits you went through, now we want to actually take a harder look at this and see what it can mean for our business.
Now, and I think you had a couple of slides. We haven't had much slideware here today, but give Ted an opportunity to speak to a couple of his points.
Well, Max, I mean, this is what we see when we look at a lot of companies, right? There's a lot of point solutions that are in there today. A lot of them are due to acquisitions, or companies, as I like to say, the entire market has melted. Big A, little e, big E, little c, whatever. Everyone's trying to go up and down that value chain from design through operations, or most companies are, I should say, not everyone. But because the margins are so thin, and people have gotten themselves into this acquisition game, merger game, or they simply are buying point solutions to actually satisfy that divisional requirement that they have. So when we see something like this, we feel very strongly that we can solve that, because all those functions that you find predominantly in an organization, we've actually combined them into one fully integrated system that gives companies the flexibility to grow and change as the market changes.
Should we move on to the next slide, I think? So this is probably what you're speaking to.
This is exactly what I'm speaking to. So, and again, it's not a zero-sum game. The system is, again, an open system, and it has APIs and web services, and it allows you to integrate with other third-party applications if you want to keep them. Okay, it's not like you have to just throw everything out. If you have spent a lot of time on your equipment maintenance solution and you don't want to change it, don't. Okay, we will integrate with that, but let us work on all the other aspects of your business and bring them together. Yeah.
Good point.
And then what I like to say here, and I think this slide more than anything really depicts the Microsoft difference and what I was getting at with our partner ecosystem. And if you look at the market, there are a lot of what we call niche vendors out there that are highly specialized in delivering ERP software for the AEC industry. And they've got a lot of those vertical features, but as you go into the more horizontal features, full-on financial management, full-on fabrication, planning and budgeting, they start to show their cracks.
HR,
HR.
yeah.
And when you get down to the platform, I mean, people overlook the fact that workflow is not embedded often in a lot of these products,
True.
or they don't have a BI or reporting product that is particularly strong. What's their mobile platform? Okay. Now, if you take the inverse of that and you look at the traditional big tier 1 ERP players, they've come from the bottom. They have all those platform elements, they've got those horizontal elements, but as you get into the broader industry-specific features, they actually tend to show some gaps in their
Right.
applications as well. And again, I have some experience there. What Microsoft does is we say, we are going to build from the platform up to the broader industry features within our own application, and then we look to our partners to take that application to the last mile. Build those industry-specific functions and continue to iterate on them to make this application really come to life. And that's why it's green there, because we can go up and down, because you're effectively getting multiple R&D teams working together for the same common purpose or goal.
Great, great. Well, this has been tremendously informative, I hope, for everybody today. I think we need to probably just go to some Q&A, give the clients out there a chance to ask some questions. So do we have some questions coming through? So one of the questions that we have here are, what are some of the difference in needs for general contractors versus specialty contractors when they're looking for an ERP solution or business applications? I think this would be a great one for you, Christian.
I think you're right. So general contractors don't have to manage as much labor, but they have to manage subcontractors, which is a completely different sort of animal to manage. And so they're very focused on contracts, contract compliance, change order management. They're oftentimes managing owner risk. They're managing the design professionals oftentimes. They're also trying to maintain a safe job site environment. So the general contractor has a sort of set of needs like that, but they don't care about inventory. They don't care about equipment management. They don't care about labor productivity the same way that a specialty contractor does. Some of the specialty contractors care deeply about inventory management because they keep inventory, or they might have a fabrication like sheet metal operation going on. Some of the specialty contractors may have heavy equipment that they bring onto the job site. That's got to stay productive and costed properly. So they are very different needs. Now, at the end of the day, they're both project-based businesses, and they both bill on a cost plus or a lump sum type of basis using AIA billings typically. They both have certified job and payroll requirements. If they're either usually collective bargaining union shops or they're open shops. So there are similarities for sure, but when it comes down to ERP, I would say that those are some of the bigger differences. I would also say that the general contractor tends to be the one who owns the project management and collaboration solution that is going to be used by the project team.
Yeah, true, very true. And labor management is a big one. Yeah, you're right. They don't have the labor management issues, but they do have the subcontract management issues that maybe a specialty is not as focused on, but they still have those issues as well. Let me see, we have another question coming in from the audience. And so the other question is, can I easily add on third-party solutions to Dynamics AX? And I think you touched on that, but we'll throw that back at you too.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yes. We ship Dynamics AX with what's called the Application Integration Framework, which is all the open APIs. As long as that third-party application has APIs, we can connect to it, and we've done it with a lot of products in this space. We were talking about Primavera the other day.
Yep.
So yeah, all sorts of third-party products that you would find. And again, back to that point, if you're using it today and you really want to keep it, you don't have to get rid of it. We can just bring it right in. I don't know if you wanted to say anything.
Yeah, I would concur. I would say because of the openness of AX, I would say the capability of integrating third party is very, very fluent in regards of the ease of that capability. From what we've been able to encounter through the process that we've done with AX compared to some other ERPs.
That's good. That's good. So we've got time for, looks like, one more question, and we'll have to wrap up. We've got somebody asking, does Dynamics AX include, you mentioned union payroll earlier. Does it, it has payroll, but does it have union payroll?
Yeah, and I think that this feature speaks specifically to the point I was trying to make. Microsoft has added payroll to our AX solution, but when it comes to the specific payroll functionality that you would find in a union shop, we've looked to partners like SIS to build that capability into it. So you may be actually better suited to answer that question than me.
And thank you for asking that question. We have a fantastic union payroll solution written in AX. It's an integrated module in AX language, not some API or application program interface, not to use acronyms. So if we didn't have time to get to your questions today, I want to thank you for joining us. We will answer your questions, and we will get those on our website. So thank you all for attending. We'll also post the recorded webinar for those of you that might have missed part of it or want to look back at some of the panelist answers and insight. As a next step, we'd love for you to call us and ask us more. We're certainly glad to tell you more about the solutions that we've built on top of Dynamics AX and some of the insight that we have. Thank you again, and with that, I'll say goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.